Hello, welcome to the Focused Mindset Podcast. And today I have a super cool guest. I have Gentry here, and I just blew your name big time, even though we just talked about it, because I was going to call you Dan, and then I say Daniel, and then but it is Daniel.
It is, but you know what? It's okay. What was it? You can call me Dan, you can call me Daniel, you can call me anything you want, just not late for dinner. Um,
So Dan Gentry is from Third Power Performance, and we were able to get in contact through the TEDx Ocala event that happened recently that you guys are aware I was able to speak at. And Dan was my speaker coach. Yay! And for a while, as we began to talk, we knew that there was quite a bit of common ground as far as what we like to put out in the world and how we like to help people. And I am just very privileged to be able to have you on today to talk to us a little bit about that. And before we even get started, tell me a little bit about what is Third Power Performance and tell me a little bit about you.
Excellent. Well, I just before we get into all of that, I just want to say it was so cool being connected with you for TEDx Ocala. That has always been I loved the event. So it was just really cool to be moved from a speaker last year to actually helping somebody through that process and all of that. So it's been an absolute pleasure to have been working with you. So,
Well, yeah,
um,
I mean, we'll just say that first. You were able, just last year, you were a speaker.
mhm, that is true.
And and you've been involved with TEDx Ocala for how many years now?
8 years
Wow. Yeah.
in one
So
form
you
or another, one form or
yes,
another.
you've watched it evolve, watch it grow, and been able to MC. And then if any of you want to jump over and watch his talk, it's amazing. What's it titled?
It's find your personal purpose.
That's right. Find your
Dan
personal
Gentry.
purpose. And I listened to it and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so lucky to have him as a coach. It was great. And you were so helpful for real because, as you guys are totally aware, it's kind of like you can have a vision for something, but lack focus, which is a lot of what we talk about on my podcast. Is we want to have a focused mindset, and one of the ways that we do that is by allowing others to help you with that and being vulnerable enough to say, you know what, this isn't something I've done before, help me. And
Yes.
that's exactly why Ted wants us to have coaches, and why you decided to step up to the plate and be a coach this year. And you were amazing. So thank you so much. I
You
don't know.
are.
You were in the audience. How do you think it went?
Oh, I mean, I loved it. I mean, like I said, I've been to so many of these events. All the speakers were great. But I loved it. You walk out on stage and I'm like, yes, and just knocked it out of the park. I'm so excited for everybody to be able to hear your talk. I'm excited for it to come out so that I can watch it again. Right.
For sure.
But yeah, the whole event was fantastic and just so many good ideas. And just I know that the message that you're putting out there about finding hope, about you know guiding conversation, it's so important in today's world where it's well, here's what you need to do, right? It's we want to give advice, and it's like, here's what you need to do. It's like, no, let's listen. So yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty
It
cool.
was so crazy walking out onto that stage that I still haven't really processed it. I don't know how long it took for you to really process the event, because it's a lot heavier than a lot of other events. You just go out, you do your training or whatever you're asked to do, and then you take off. But in this one, there's a lot of gravity that you feel,
Hmm.
and the audience was absolutely amazing. Was it that way last year for you too? Is that kind of the
Oh
way
yeah.
that, I mean, they just fed you with positive energy like I could not believe.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's one of the things I love about the TEDx, experience, right? Is everybody's coming there because they want to experience good ideas. right? They're coming there with the open mind, and wanting to be there, wanting to listen, and just you're so true. It is that outpouring of goodwill and good energy, right? And so it
Yeah.
is walking out. I remember walking out on that stage was it was one of the coolest moments for me. And what's weird is I've done a lot of speaking. I've been on a lot of stages, and talked about life balance and talked about purpose and all of that. And it was somehow different. It was just a very different feel, and it's actually pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Now, the one question you did ask is how long does it take before it really sets in, and you're like, okay. Um, it took a couple of weeks for me to kind of like, I did that.
Okay, then I'm right on track, I
So
guess.
you're in good shape. You're in good shape.
Because we're only, as of this recording, we're not even 2 weeks out, and I
Yeah.
sat down to write a blog about it, and I thought, I think I'm ready, and I just felt like I couldn't even process what I had been through. Like there was so many thoughts flowing through my mind that I just kind of put it aside for a minute because it was a powerful moment to be able to have something for me and maybe for you as well, something that I had been in my mind that I hoped would come to fruition for a little while. So it
Yeah.
wasn't as if the moment that we got that email saying, "Hey, you're invited," that the journey didn't start there. It started before that. I'm sure that was the case for you as well.
Indeed, yeah, because I had actually applied a couple of times to speak, and um, but there's a lot of competition there, so uh, it was neat to let. But well, like you said, getting the email that hey, you're going to do it. The journey started a couple of years beforehand, and
Mm,
actually, I mean, if you want to get real deep, it actually started like 20 years ago when the story that I told in my speech happened.
true.
That was the beginning of that journey.
That's a good
Was
point.
going into the fun, shall we
Yeah.
say, that led me to be doing what I'm doing now.
But honestly, like the journey of what you went through was preparing you even for sharing that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's heavy. I get you, but that's actually pretty heavy. If you to be honest, like
Heavy,
if you really
man.
think of
It's
the
heavy.
gravity of that, because it means like what we're doing right now in our life, what is it preparing us for?
Exactly.
I mean, that's something for us to sit and say, okay, okay.
Uh-huh. Well, it's so funny. I saw a great meme online the other day that was like, we're all worried, or whenever somebody like talks about time travel in the movies or whatever, you're worried that you're going to like step on a mess up a butterfly and it's going to change the future in dramatic ways,
I
right?
have never worried about that.
Okay, well, but here's the
Maybe I
thing.
should. Now I'm going to. Dang it. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, but it was like that this some little tiny thing
I
was
know
going
what
to
you
make
mean.
a huge difference in the future. And the thing was, well, why don't you then do the important little things now to make a dramatic difference in your future,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And
On
so
purpose.
on purpose, right? So I thought that was it was so interesting because there are those events that happened, that where it's this is a big deal, right?
Yeah.
This is a traumatic or
Heavy.
whatever,
Yeah.
and then how do we how do we take that and move forward in a positive?
How do we use it in our life to make some kind of impact? You
Exactly.
know, it's kind of the attitude of coming up on Thanksgiving here pretty soon when we're recording live.
Yep.
Um, it's kind of like the attitude of gratitude, but in a
Yes.
sense where it's a hardest thing you can do is to choose to be have gratitude even for our difficult moments.
Yep.
That's tough. But there's power in that because then we can begin to refocus to
Mm,
saying maybe there's something that's going to come of this that's bigger than this.
right. Well, and it's the same kind of thing where we talk about courage, and in the same way that courage is not a lack of fear, it's feeling the fear and doing it anyway.
Mm,
And so when we have these moments that are, traumatic or whatever, um, maintaining hope that's the courage, right?
right.
Not because it's easy, right? It's so easy to fall into hopelessness,
Right.
but we, know that my personal feeling is everything happens for a reason, right?
Mm.
And there's, it's not Jim Rohn says, it's not the blowing of the wind, it's the set of our sails, right? It's
Oh, that's
how do
true.
we want to use that, this horrible thing, but use it for good, right? And so that's what that's what led us, setting our sails, doing
Yeah.
our
Yeah,
tack.
and it does take a lot of steps forward into the uncomfortable realm too, because you
Yes,
have to apply and then say, "All right, fine, I'll apply again," and "Okay, fine, I'll apply again."
yes, indeed, yes, indeed.
So, what is third power performance?
So, Third Power Performance is it's my basically it's my company. It's my mission to make the world a better place. I mean, in its core thing. But what it really is it's speaking. I do speaking and coaching and helping people find their personal purpose. I have a concept that it's in my talk, but I talk about it a lot more. Is being a drifter or commander. It's so often so many of us are just kind of drifting through life, right? We're in the little dinghy and the rowboat in the middle of the ocean, and like we're just going around in circles because we're just drifting. And so for me, I want to help people take command of their life, which is one of the reasons why I loved coaching, and I love coaching you on this talk, is like helping give people, here's the purpose, here's the direction we're going, and here are the things to watch out for. And so my company is really, it's me talking about that kind of thing and helping people through it. I'm actually getting ready to launch my roundtable, which is a kind of basically like a community, online community where we all get together and do talks and that sort of stuff. So
And be a
yeah.
community.
Hmm?
And be a community together,
And
which we all
be a
need.
community and help people. It's basically what it really boils down to is like accountability, right? You've got your workout partner at the gym. You're going to go to the gym. Where if it's just you, maybe I'll drive right on by, go to Starbucks. Um, but yeah. So I like to say that my personal mission in life is to make the song "Cats in the Cradle" just a song and not a story about anybody.
Aw.
I don't know if you're super
I'm very
familiar.
familiar. Yeah, it's one of my husband's favorite, actually.
Uh, yeah, it's whenever possible. If I ever go out and doing karaoke, I always try to do that song first. I know it's not the most upbeat for like a karaoke kind of thing, but
Yeah.
it's always been my
Nonetheless, it's your go-to.
it is my go-to for to start with, and then we'll have some fun later.
Yeah.
But um,
Then you go to no, not really.
yeah, I can do one ACDC song, and that
Really?
well, there are a bunch of them I can do, but my voice can only handle doing one song.
Then you're through.
you know.
Then it's the end. It's the end of it for the whole night after that.
Yes, it's like I don't understand how Angus Young can still talk.
Yeah, I did Sweet
Um,
Child of Mine once. That wasn't such a I was done after that was a lot. Anyways,
anyway,
um no, it is surprising that you even brought up that song because that's one of my husband's favorite. He plays it and just kind of really because it's a story, but it's a story that is about relationships, and and it's touching. But I think so many times we do miss that we have a purpose and that it's up to us to seek out that purpose, not just let whatever comes our way just drift us along. So I like that idea of being like, are you on a boat, just letting it just toss you wherever?
Hmm.
or do you, actively go towards the shore wherever you're trying to go? What kind of helped you clarify this vision of yours and then move forward with it?
Um, well, I actually have like basically a course that I made I walk people through the process of, how do you find that purpose? What are the lessons that you want to teach? What I call your lighthouses, right? What's that? We can either be a warning or encouragement to people. It's like, here's what I did that worked, do that. Here's what I did, don't do what I did, right? And mine are generally more, don't do that. um but it's, and then it's finding your passions. What do you really love to do? And then, kind of combining all of that together with some of my other um the other stuff that I talk about with the life triad and that sort
Mm-hmm.
of thing. But it's really helping you come up with like a purpose statement, or kind of what's your personal mission, kind of
Yes, like your
deal.
mantra.
Yes. So it just really, yeah. So I'm trying to make that difference in the world. That's really what it boils down to.
I think that that's something that that does get lost in our society of hard work and just
Mhm.
work, 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 and just get to the next thing. And you'll probably be able to get a raise along the way and possibly a promotion. And then before you know it, you might be in a place that is nowhere near what's going to give you peace in your life,
No.
And so I feel as though people, um, two things. One is having a community of accountability, like you said, is
Right.
something that becomes more and more rare as we grow older. I feel as though friendships and accountability friendships become harder to connect with. And so I think it's going to be a powerful tool once you launch that for the people that gravitate towards your message and hopefully, I don't know, I mean, probably, do you gravitate mostly towards helping other men or
um
both? Or
it's funny. My Because my target is really people like me 20 years ago, right?
mm,
It's that successful professional male. Um, but I also find that my message tends to resonate more frequently with women.
huh.
I And part of that makes sense, from a societal perspective. Men are not supposed to be we can't be vulnerable. We can't, we're not necessarily introspective. That's not something that's lauded, shall we
Yeah,
say,
it's like
right?
it's somewhat of like a, "Oh, no, you're not a tough man if you show too much of that," kind of thing, which I really despise. I despise
Yeah.
that.
It Well, yeah. And so in order to really understand that your life is out of balance, and that to understand the song Cats in the Cradle, where you have your children but you're away at work and you're not there when they grow up, right? That has been glamorized as the
Mm.
hard work, you're a hard working guy, right? um, where the spend time with your family, well, that's mom's job, right? um,
That's why I feel as though your message really, I hope, resonates even through who we're talking to today with more men, because I find there's a lot of fathers that I've interviewed on my podcast and a lot of men that I talk to that will admit to me, even when I'm counseling with their child, when they know they're in a confidential situation, they'll say, I've struggled with my mental health too. I've struggled with those
yeah,
same things. And I feel like there's a whole bunch of men out there that wish so much that they could have a manly way to be vulnerable,
yeah,
some way that
yeah,
they could do that and still. And I don't think that, I think you might be just the right person to really push that through because we need it. We really, really need our men not to be devalued for being manly, but also to say, okay, I'm going to be real with the fact that I need to realign my values right now, that I've got off course, that I'm overworking, these type of things.
yeah.
And the second thing that it makes me think about is the fact that it's okay for men to reevaluate if they're on that hamster wheel. So it could be any age.
Yeah. Well, and that's funny. The line that I that still wakes me up from my TEDx talk was the whole idea where my entire plan was work hard, get promoted, make more money, repeat until you die. Right? I mean, that was the whole plan. I'm
What
just
more do
going
you
to
need?
make lots
Right.
of money, and everything, everything will work out. And spoiler alert,
That's
not.
not the way it worked.
Um, and so for me, it comes back to that whole courage
Hmm.
is not the absence of fear. It's
Right.
feeling the fear and doing it anyway. And to be vulnerable, to be able to talk about the, have I screwed up as a father? Right? To be able to ask that question, there's fear there,
Heck
right?
yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, Nobody wants to be a failure, right? Um, and so that's what I hope that in some small way, me sharing some of these stories is that it's okay, right, to be that have that vulnerability and to understand that you know we all make mistakes, but was it the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, the next best time is now, right?
Right.
So we can make a difference now. Even like I have some of my kids are grown and have their own kids now, right? um it's still not too late to improve that relationship and to build that up. So I'm very fortunate that I've still got my two boys at home, not for much longer, but my son's a senior in high
You're
school,
growing up, baby.
and then and then I've got my other one for a few more years. But
Yeah.
um and but I want them to understand. And that's why they were in the audience
Hmm.
for my TEDx talk. Actually, they were in the audience for yours as well.
They were.
uh,
Yep.
but is to understand that this is the I talk about generational habits as kind
Mm.
of a conversation that I have occasionally, and that the whole concept of the absentee father who's just working and providing the money, the whole cats in a cradle thing, um, that's a generational habit.
Yes.
And so if I can break that habit with my boys, that I can get them to understand this is the way it should be, I can break that generational negative habit and instill one that's going to go forward beyond me, right? It's my
That's powerful.
legacy, right? Um, that's that's where that purpose comes in. I, I don't want Cats in the Cradle to be a story about anybody. That it's beyond, and this is one of the things about our purpose is it's beyond our lifetime most
Right.
of the time, right? And so for me, that's why I do what I do, and that's why I love the conversation that we're having, is because I you know I'm changing it in my family where I have
Hmm.
direct influence, at least doing my best.
Right.
Kids, for some reason, they have their own brains and don't always do what we tell them. Um, but
Really?
yeah, exactly. I know. Who knew? Um, but if I can help, a few other people that have that same, and I can help them break the generational habit for their kids,
Yeah.
right? That's like that's the juice, man. That just that gets me excited. I get chills. I
You
get chills.
you're on a path that from this side being a school counselor for the past 20 years,
Hmm.
the stories that I hear from the boys that I counsel proves to me that you're on the right track. So I want to encourage you in plowing forward with your mission, because it's not just something that comes upon you and then you have a need to help others. It's something that people really do struggle with, because I have boys that sit with me and I ask them about their parents and they say, I don't know my dad. I
Yep.
don't see him. He doesn't know me. And then you know what that translates in? They don't care about me.
Right.
and they don't know the difference. And it takes years and years and years for them to sort out that their father is not it when they're off at work. It has nothing to do with their how much they care. And I feel as though if a father has a job that is very demanding, there's nothing wrong with that. But they if they never voice the fact that the reason they're working, what they're doing when they're working, if they don't involve their child in their work and talk to them about that and talk about the values and
Yeah.
really love on them in the time that they have, then the child doesn't know that automatically,
Right.
and so many dads think they do. And I see it all the time. And then it translates into, how are you feeling? And they don't know. It takes them 3 or 4 meetings to be able to feel comfortable enough with me to just share how they're feeling. And as you can imagine, I bring a girl in there and they're telling me how they're feeling before we hit the door of my office. And so, but once they do, they say the same things. I feel frustrated. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get good grades. I don't know if my mom's happy with me, blah, 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 blah. So this proves to me that it's time to break these generational habits that have not served us well. And I think it needs to happen with our fathers redefining how they approach their work. It doesn't mean change their work necessarily. I don't know. Speak on that. What do you think about that? There you
Yeah.
go. There's a whole bunch
Yeah.
to talk
There.
about.
Dun, 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 dun. No. Um, but no, the you're absolutely right. And one of the big things that that gets talked a lot about, and they actually, a couple of the speakers kind of poked fun at it at TEDx, is work life balance,
Yeah,
right?
that was funny.
Um, and there's this, I like to call it a work life harmony more than a balance, right? And the reality of it is if you want to accomplish great things, you can't have balance. You have
Mm,
to have a kind of a myopic focus on what you want to do, right? And that's okay. And I call it being out of balance on purpose,
mm,
right?
mm.
And the challenge is that for so many people, especially men, we're working and we're providing and we're doing
True.
all of the things that society tells us we should do. Therefore, our family must know that we love them,
Right.
right? And the reality is, no, not necessarily.
It's
They
it's
need
it's a
to hear
bizarre
it,
thing, right? It's a bizarre
right?
thing because it's like the man that's out working every single day, and they may think about their family 100 times.
Hmm.
And if they never ever voice it, somehow it doesn't get translated to the one that they're even thinking about. It's a very interesting thing in relationships.
Yes, and and it really is the little things. I did a podcast, God, probably a year ago now, maybe more, but it was basically how a glass of water saved my marriage, right?
Aw.
Right, and it was a little bit hyperbole. The marriage was never really in
Right, of
danger,
course.
but the thing is that one of the things that I do, my wife always has a glass of water next to her in the night because she gets thirsty and her throat gets dry. Well, it's my job that I bring her a glass of water when I come into the bedroom. I bring and put it there,
That's
right?
your role.
That's yeah, and it's like it's this little tiny thing. I mean, it takes like literally 15 seconds to fill up the glass of water because I'm walking that way anyway, right?
Mhm.
But it's the fact that I was thinking about you and I wanted to do this thing for you, right?
Yes, that's such a
And
perfect example.
so it's the emotional bank account. I've heard it referred to as that too, where you're, as long as you're constantly making deposits when stuff happens, and trust me, stuff's gonna happen
Right.
in life, right? You don't know when you may need a little bit of grace,
Mhm.
and and so as fathers, we have to remember that we're putting money in the financial bank account, but we also need to be putting deposits in the emotional bank account, right?
Right.
And I say fathers, it's the same thing for women. Lots of women who are the breadwinners and are
Right.
working and all of that,
Mm-hmm.
right? So they need to remember as well. But the overgeneralization, right? In
Right. And as
general,
we're
women
talking about
are
the
more.
generational things that have gone on, yeah.
Exactly. So in the overgeneralization is that women are usually more in touch with the feelings anyway, and they kind of deal with that deposits in the emotional bank account. Men have to be reminded a little bit more.
Yeah.
Um, just
I,
saying.
I I agree. I mean, I think it's just we got to say it like it is. We can't pretend like it doesn't exist because that's when we don't give people what they need. So here we have a generation of fathers that do want to do things differently and do also still want to be successful in their career that hopefully they love, or maybe they need to make a big change to be able to find their purpose for real.
Mm,
That can happen at any age. My husband recently changed jobs, and it took a long time for him to process and figure out how he might make a big change that he needed for his life. So then, once people kind of gravitate towards your message, then now you provide an actual step by step method of how they might do that. So they're not left out floundering and figuring that out.
indeed. And I do want to say this is one of the reasons why your message and your talk really resonated with me too, is that the real piece that so many people are missing and what is keeping them in that drifter mentality is they're missing hope,
Mm,
right? That they don't have somebody to talk to that will walk them through how to fix their own issues, right?
yeah.
It is amazing to me how many people I've coached where I provide some tactics and I provide some different perspectives, but I don't think that there is a single person that I've talked to that didn't know what they needed to do, really, right?
Right.
They just needed somebody to help them reflect and give them the hope, and that it's
Yeah.
create your plan and it's okay to start and start badly, right?
Right.
um so we're missing we're basically it's missing hope. And
Yeah,
that's
because
one
I
of the
think that
reasons why I
you're
love
right. I'm
your
picturing
thing.
men like driving. I don't know why I keep going. I just know that it's a huge, huge issue. Like you're driving at work or wherever, and the thought is, I'm stuck here.
Oh yeah.
Like
Yeah.
and when you have that feeling of being stuck, that is hope kind of like sucking away from your life as it's just like rolling out the window as because you know, feeling stuck is an awful feeling. And people feel stuck because they need that money. They feel like they've worked hard for that career. They've,
Oh my
done all
god.
that. And then how in the world can they find vision if they're feeling stuck? How do you approach that?
Yeah, because I went through that in the last year.
Mm.
um
Your last year has been full of change, and I'm gonna
that's
be so.
a very kind
That's that full
very
of unexpected and things that we. But I mean, I hope that uh these moments you've been through will only help people in the future, but it's been pretty hard, I know, for what you've
yeah.
been through even this year.
Yeah, it's been a challenge, because as we talked, last November I did my TEDx talk, and then
Yes.
a few weeks later, my stepfather went into the hospital,
Mm,
ended up um, having some pretty aggressive cancer. So he passed in January, and so that was pretty hard. Um, trying to deal with all of that, and my mom had been in the Christmas before Christmas 2021. She had a stroke, so I spent the entire Christmas holiday in the hospital, and then Christmas 2022, whole week, whole
right.
holiday in the hospital dealing with my stepfather. Um, so, but what made it even more fun is that the the job that I had been at for 15, 16 years, um, had changed.
Mm.
And it was the kind of thing where you said something that really kind of clicked with me. It was like I remember the day that was okay. Change is happening this week.
Whoa.
The thing was I woke up and my very first thought was, shit, I got to do this again.
Right. There you go. There's that stuck.
And it's like, ugh.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I know I'm not stuck. I know this is not, you know, a problem. I've got so many opportunities and
Yeah.
all of but it was that feeling of just, but, you know, I'm going to lose that income if I just make
Right.
a change. Right.
It leaves you in that place. Right.
Yeah.
And
So
that changed.
indeed.
Wow. So,
So,
I mean, and then what we were alluding to, even during the time when you were coaching me, you had the most massive
uh,
situation that nobody ever wants to go through. And so I was so happy that even though you had to take care of what you needed to take care of, that you were able to also find it within you to be there for me as a coach.
yeah. So
Which
yeah,
was
so that was fun because we got assigned, we started working together, and I think we gotten your talk into a good spot, and and I sent you a text message. Not going to be around for a couple of weeks.
No, it was
Um,
funny because I knew something, and I'm like, how was your week? You're all, it was just about as bad as it could possibly be. You were just totally frank about it. I'm like, oh, this can't be good.
yeah, for those that don't know, October 15th, my mother passed. So
Mm,
my mom had a stroke, as I said, in 2021. And then, when my stepfather died, I was basically kind of caretaking for her as well as dealing with work and everything else. So, and then in October, she had another major stroke, and I was out of the state. I was in Louisiana at the time, doing everything by phone. So it just, yeah, that was definitely a gut punch.
yeah. But I'm
So
so glad that you're already choosing how in the moment and as you went through it, you were kind of like making those conscious choices on how you were going to deal with it. Because what's your podcast called again?
Third Power Life.
So Third Power Life, you guys will have to follow it along with, have it be right next to mine
There you
because
go.
you were vulnerable enough to go ahead and talk about it. And I have to say that I definitely encourage everyone to go and listen to that episode only because it very much will make a lot of sense as far as our conversation here.
Yeah.
Because it is true that, relationships and your relationships with people are so important, and you were able to speak to the importance of the time that you spent with your mother while she was still alive, and that actually goes into what we were just talking about, is reaching out and those moments we have with our kids.
Yeah.
It's really should be the basis of why we do what we do, is our relationship with the people that we love.
Yes. And that's, and again, that's why I like your message so much, is that the hopeful conversations and all of that. It's really, when you boil it down, it's about connecting. And
Mm-hmm.
it's about, it's not waiting your turn to talk. It's true connection with the person to help them have hope. And, the it was funny, the podcast I did about my mom and all of that. I wasn't sure I was going to publish it, honestly.
Mm.
Um,
I'm glad you did. I thought it was beautifully done.
but we don't know how much time we have. We really don't. And that's why, more than, you know, having a good emotional bank account, those deposits that you're making, as long as you're making them consistently, like a good deposit in a bank, it can continue after you pass.
Mm.
And So it's the take the time to appreciate everybody in your world, and to really to understand the gift that you have of having them. And that's, coming back to the fathers and the cats and that's really what it's about. Is, you know what was it? Oh, what was her name? The Australian nurse that did the five fears of the die, or regrets of the dying.
I don't
Um,
know.
oh, anyway, if you look at it, it's fantastic. But it was like, I wish I had lived a life the way I wanted versus trying to be what everybody else wanted.
So true.
But she said that for all of her male patients, it was always, I wish I hadn't spent so much time at the office.
Wow.
I wish I
See?
hadn't worked so hard. And I'm like, in the corporate world or in any job, really, you can be replaced like that.
Yep.
In your family, you cannot,
Thank you. That's so true.
right?
And that is, I mean, we just need to plaster that all over the place to every time we even have the inkling of trying to get things out of balance, then we realize, because I do think, I mean, I like the jokes about the balance and stuff, but I think we do need to be aware, because it's unrealistic to think that we're always going to, sometimes things are going to feel a little more balanced, sometimes they're not, but I think it's important that we're aware of where we're at, because if
Exactly.
not, then how can we ever gauge it, to say we're not giving enough to the things that matter the most.
Right. And that's why, when I talk about being out of balance on purpose,
Mhm.
it's absolutely what I mean. It's like,
Mhm.
I understand that for this month or
Mhm.
this 2 months or whatever it is, I'm going to be really hyper focused on
Yeah.
getting this thing done. But I'm also aware that I'm not going to be spending as much time with my children or with my family, but I want them to understand, here's what I'm doing,
Right.
here's why,
Yeah.
right? But still, because in my life balance, I've got, not there are 9 areas of life balance. It's the triad twice, so 3 times 3. Anyway, and my thing is, they don't all have to be the same amount of time or the same amount of energy or anything, but you need to make sure that they're all covered and that you are okay with the status of each area,
Good point. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's huge.
right?
Yeah.
So your philanthropy and your, friendships, they're going to be taking a pause, or, even my spiritual life maybe taking a pause, so that I can do this big deal, but I know they're okay. And
Right.
whenever,
Yeah.
and so when, even while I'm focusing on this big deal, okay, everybody's still good. All right. Right.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's
So
not
it
out of
doesn't
sight,
have
out
to
of
be
mind in a
a
sense. Yeah.
huge amount of energy, but it needs to
Mhm.
be monitored, I guess.
Right. And I know that you really helped me with that too during our coaching, where there was a moment when we were coaching where I thought, I'm beginning to feel a little bit guilty for focusing so much on this. Like I feel as though it's always in my brain. I'm always thinking about
Yeah.
if I need to tweak it or what I need to do, or as the writing. And you had told me the climbing Mount Everest analogy that I then told other people, because it mattered so much to me, where it was like, there's not a lot of people that climb Mount Everest, but those people that do had to focus on their training. They had to focus on what they were doing. And for a while, that's probably all they thought about, but that's
Right.
okay, because they're training for something big that not very many people do. And that's kind of like what got me through the times when I needed to hyper focus on making sure I was prepared. But then bringing my daughter into it, she was a part of that process and understanding what I was doing. And I had a little mock thing here in California that she was able to go to and listen to me talk, since she couldn't come with us. And um, I think that speaks to us being on purpose, but also making deliberate choices through that time that bring our loved ones into a place of community with us. And I just love seeing your sons there. they were volunteering, and your oldest son didn't even realize that you were coaching me. Your younger one was back there hustling, and so him and
Yeah.
I, we talked quite a bit, and he knew that, I was the one you were helping. The younger one, I mean the older one, he was talking with me, and he goes, oh, the person he was with really liked my talk, and he goes, my dad's here too, my dad's one of the coaches. And I'm all, oh, really? Who's your dad? He's like, oh, he's that guy. I'm all, that guy's my coach. That's how he's all, oh, it was funny. And so
Yeah.
I said, hey, you must be the son that your younger brother said was getting volunteer hours for sitting out and watching rather than doing your volunteer time. And he was like, oh. So
Yeah,
we had a,
that sounds about right.
yeah, we had a good little banter there, but it was so neat to see them supporting you, and just, it was a wonderful moment as a parent to parent situation. And I think that's a really good way to wrap up, is just to say, it's important for us to have our priorities in line, and for our to understand the power of the performance and third power performance, all that. It's all important. But what's most important are relationships,
Right.
right? It's the number
Absolutely.
one thing, the people we love and the relationships we build. So,
Indeed.
you know,
I mean, that's what we're leaving our legacy for. It's not us,
no,
you know.
yeah, yep. Yes, that is true. So
Indeed.
now I need to figure out, what do I put in the show notes here? How do people find you?
Ah, excellent. Um, so thirdpowerlife.com
Okay.
is an easy one. You can do thirdpowerperformance.com too, but um, Third Power Life is just easier to remember. Uh,
Yes.
and one of the things that I'm really interested in, if people do want to go, is I made a survey. I call it my commander survey. So it's
Awesome.
like, I think 9 or 10 questions where you kind of like, sort of like personality profile kind of thing, but it's where are you on that journey between, drifter to commander and all of that. So that's,
Yes.
it's a neat process for, it starts the whole like self-evaluation, which is absolutely necessary for you to find your purpose and to honestly to make any type of a change. Is you have to start with, where am I now?
Mm.
Right? Before you create the plans, you
Mm-hmm.
can have all the plans in the world, but where am I starting from?
Yeah.
Right? My travel plan from here to, to New York depends very much if I'm in Paris or if I'm in Florida, right? Very
True.
different paths to go. So you got to know where you are.
So
So
that's
that's,
on your website that they could take
yes,
that, or
yes.
okay.
So you go
So
to Third Power Life.
look for where do they what do they look for on your website to take that survey?
It's big and bold. It's the Commander Survey.
Commander survey. All right. So everyone is going to check the link if you forgot, but head over and take the commander survey. And then it's going to be just the beginning of an amazing journey of life, right?
Indeed, indeed.
For sure. Well, thank you again for coming on the show. And also thank you for coaching me in that amazing event that in my life, and that we were able to share that. And what a blessing that we're able to be in contact. I think it's really just an added benefit, the friendship that we've been able to grow here. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. And I feel so honored that I get to be part of your journey. So uh, it's I really love where you're going and what you're doing, and so anything that I can do to help, I'm more than happy to do.
Oh, thank you so much, Dan. All right. So it's time for us to say goodbye. Until next time, thank you for coming on.
Absolutely.
Bye
Thank you
bye.
for having me.
And done.